Hello, you guys. Luxira Moon Goddess, and today we are going to be discussing the world is not fair, and neither should you be. So, we're going to be discussing that. Let's get started. And yes, I have my baby I'm a star prescription glasses on because we're going to be talking about the knowledge today. So, let's get into it. So, with that being said, the world is not fair. And at a certain point, when you get older, you realize this. The world is not fair. The world is not fair. But just because the world is not fair doesn't mean that you have to be. So, with that being said, because you have to stop and think, if the world is unfair, if life is unfair, why are you still following all of these rules, all of these laws, all of these regulations? And you have, because the thing is, not everybody's living the way that you're living anyway. You have other people out here, and people are lying. People are using deception. People are using tricks. They're doing all these different things. So you have to stop and think. And when you're younger, and there's a reason why they teach this, especially to children, they have to create in life predator and prey early on. So when you're a child, you get all of this programming as a child. And the general programming is good and bad. And they tell you as a child, oh, if you're a good person, you should help people, you should follow these morals, you should be kind, be a good person to all these people, and it's the right thing to do. Well, how do you know the right thing to do may be the wrong thing for you to do? Let me repeat that for the people in the back. The right thing to do may be the wrong thing for you to do. Just because something is the right thing to do doesn't necessarily mean that you should do it. Because there may be repercussions, there may be consequences, hidden consequences that you may not even realize. So, going back to the title of this video, if the world, because you're raised growing up, they have this ideal version of the world. Oh, people walk around, you're supposed to be good, morals, this, that, and the other, but the world is not like that. The world is not fair. Rules are not applied equally to everyone. Certain people have privileges over other people. Some people are smarter. Some people are more beautiful and have pretty privilege. Some people are more athletic and can become NFL players making millions. Some people are, people are always going to naturally have certain advantages. So if you're one of those people still believing, oh, we're all created equally, that's not necessarily true, not even on a biological level. So I don't really believe in the nonsense anymore about, oh, we're all equal. We're not all equal. We all have different talents, different capabilities, this, that, and the other. So, with that being said, if the world is not fair, why are you still playing by all these different rules? If you think about it, these rules are really just restrictions. These morals are restrictions. And so you're still walking around, I need to be a good person. I need to be, especially as women. I feel like as women, we're more wired, they push it harder on us to be, you must be a good girl. You must be da 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 da, all the, whatever. But, don't, when you get to a certain age, don't even worry about any of that, because the older you get, the more you're going to see, you live. You live and you witness different things. You're going to notice, especially if you're really young, if you're younger, you're going to notice, oh, this person over here is doing something, they're doing a shortcut. You're going to see this person over here, oh, this person lied and got away with it, and look at where he's at now. He did all this lying, and he got away with it. And then she's over here, the older you get, you're going to see these things. In fact, the older I get, I see it more on a regular basis. And it's not from like young people, it's like older people who should know better. It's like they're out here doing all sorts of things. All sorts of things. So, if you're one of these people, especially, and I feel like especially if you grew up in a super religious background, not that there's anything wrong with religion, but It has certain flaws and faults if you really think about it, especially if you grew up with strict parents as well. You have to get out of that programming. Oh, I must be good. I must be, get out of that programming. That programming about, rules, morals, all of that, it is really to restrict certain people. Because especially with children at a young age are very they're programmable, they're brainwashable because they don't know any better. So, and when with society, why do they do it? They have to create predator versus prey early on. So they know that certain kids are going to listen to the message harder than others. They're going to be the ones following the rules. They're going to be the ones, oh, I must follow the rules. If I don't do this, if I lie, if I cheat, and when they force it on you so hard, what happens when you do try to lie and cheat? You're gonna have a guilty conscience. You're gonna feel like, oh well, I shouldn't do this. It makes me feel bad. Or I cheated on the test and I feel bad. And meanwhile, you're sitting over here feeling bad for yourself. Meanwhile, this person over here has been cheating and getting away with it because they're either really sneaky or if they're really smart. Because some people are really smart and they don't ever get caught. Have intelligence. This person's been cheating over here. They don't feel guilty. You want to know why they don't feel guilty? It's because they're reaping the benefits. They're reaping the benefits. Meanwhile, you're still worried about laws, rules, morals, being a good person, and you're staying stuck on stupid. You're stuck. Because you have this guilty conscience. You feel like you can't do what this other person is doing. You can't, you have that programming in your mind, that early programming, what they taught you in school, what your parents were teaching you. The morals, the morals, the morals. You have to stop listening to the morals at some point. And I'm not talking about, become a bad person, become like a killer, serial killer, or something like really crazy. But let's be real. There are certain, there's exceptions to the rules. Sometimes you gotta lie. Sometimes you gotta cheat. And sometimes you have to do what you have to do. And sometimes doing the right thing is the wrong thing to do. You don't always have to do the right thing. Don't think that you have to do the right thing all the time. Because when you're stuck doing the right thing, I have to do the right thing. In this day and age, we're in 2026. There's no incentive for being a good person. In fact, most people, most people, you've seen the memes, you've seen stuff online, social media, good girl complex, good boy, good whatever, good guy, da 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 da. People don't appreciate good people. We're not in that. It's not like we're back in time where we had close knit societies, those very close knit smaller communities and what have you. There's no incentive to being a good person. So you're sitting, walking around. Oh, I have to be a good person. I have to follow the rules. Da, 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 da. Meanwhile, this person is out here lying, cheating, doing immoral things. And you know what? They're living their best life. Because they don't care. One, they don't care. And two, they know it's bullshit. They've woken up. They know it's some bullshit. Even if they get caught lying, cheating, do whatever, they don't give a shit. They just don't care. Meanwhile, you're stuck feeling guilty because you feeling guilty. This is how some of y'all are heavily programmed. We know, and this is really common, you feel guilty about calling out to work because you need to actually handle something. You may not be sick. You may lie and say that you're sick. But maybe some type of emergency did come up and you just didn't want to say it for whatever reason. You're feeling guilty about calling out of work. Meanwhile, you have a certain coworker who can't show up to work on time, unprofessional as hell, and will not hesitate to call out, let alone walk off a job in a heartbeat. They don't care. You have to get to a point where you have to stop caring. You just have to stop caring. Because the more you care about these, especially, and I can say it from personal experience because, I was raised, I believe the morals, you must have morals. Don't do this, do that, don't do that, be a good person, da 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 da. I saw it firsthand growing up from experience. This is why I'm speaking on this. Don't waste your time being a good person. Be good to yourself, of course, but don't waste your time being a good person. You don't even know other people like that. Most people are strangers. And people nowadays are so suspect and so strange anyway. Don't worry about being a good person. There's no incentive for being a good person. It's not something that you should concern yourself with. So, with that being said, don't worry about it. Just don't care. And at some point, and especially what happened to me is I started growing up and I started realizing all these people, this person's over here is lying, cheating, whatever. And the older I got, especially, and it was prominent in my teenage years. And at some point, it just began to click. It was like, oh, I understand why they put these morals. I understand why they teach these things in school. Why they put out these lies to these kids. It's because they must program, predator, and prey. I'd rather be a predator chasing some prey than to be preying upon of. I don't care about I don't care about being a good person. Not to say that I'm a terrible person, but I don't really care about following rules, morals. I mean, just recently I just walked off a job in the middle of a night shift. I just didn't care. I just didn't care. And I'm living in an area where people are like unprofessional anyway. And so I'm just at a point where I don't care. I walked off the shift without warning, drove home, and it was the middle of the night shift. I drove home and went to sleep. I could care less. I could care less. Because, oh, well, and a lot of people are going to say, oh, that's unprofessional. You shouldn't do that. You did the wrong thing. That can affect you to get a job. I'm looking for stupid retail jobs anyway. I know I'm not going to have a major career like most people. I know how that sounds. You can judge me. I really don't care. But I know at this point, it's not going to turn out the way I want it to be anyway. And since I'm looking for stupid retail jobs, all you have to do, especially if you aren't on the job long enough, you don't even have to put it on your resume. Boom, I just taught y'all a cheat code. If you're somebody that walk off jobs regularly, just don't put it on your resume. If it's not hasn't been 6 months, don't put it on your resume, look for another job, have peace of mind, don't stress about it. Don't stress about it. Don't stress about, especially, and now that I brought up the topic because I feel like work is a good example. It's a good example. You don't have to be the best worker in the world. And I feel like now that I'm bringing it up, I'm going to draw a connection. I think with what they teach the morals, what they teach you in school about following rules, and they tell you in school, oh, well, school is supposed to prepare you for life. What they really mean by that, because it doesn't really prepare you for life, except for the one aspect of training you and programming to be a slave worker to some type of job or some type of career. Follow these rules, be productive, create goals. All that crap they teach you in school is just to brainwash you, make you a good slave to society, good slave to a job. That's all it really is. And you would think, oh well, at some point you have to grow up, you have to be an adult. Most adults don't even follow the nonsense either. You have plenty of adults walking around. They will walk off the jobs. They will call out sick even though they're not sick. They will not show up to work on time. They will be unprofessional as hell, especially since I don't come to San Antonio because they're unprofessional as hell in that city. That's why I really can't stand it. I'll be very happy once I'm able to move out of here. But anyway, don't worry about being a good person. Worry about, are you good to yourself? You don't need to be playing fair in an unfair world. You need to be, if anything, you need to get to a point where you need to strategize. You need to figure out how to get to a point where you can use strategy. Work your advantage. What advantages do you have? Do you have pretty privilege? Are you really smart and can outsmart other people and find loopholes and this, that, and the other? Are you able to lie really well and not get caught? Be deceptive. Are you able to, do you have a particular talent where you could possibly be making millions? Figure out how to work your advantage. Because the world is not fair. It's never going to be fair. As long as humans have existed on the face of this earth, as long as we existed in history, it's never going to be fair. Some of y'all are still walking around as primarily people like around my age, Gen Z or whatever. Some of y'all is walking around really believing, oh, we're all equal. We're all equal. Racism doesn't exist like this, and men and women are equal, and y'all really walking around buying into this bullshit because it's bullshit. Meanwhile, I just already know better. I just know better. It's never going to be equal. It's not to say it's necessarily a bad thing that it's not going to be equal, but it's just a fact. It's never going to be equal. There's always going to be, some sort of judgment, racism, sexism, da 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 da. But the thing is the sooner you realize and get to a point, oh, the world is not an equal place. The world is not a fair place. The sooner you realize this, the sooner you come to this epiphany, you're not really going to be one of those people getting super angry about, oh, the world is unfair and it's not fair. She cheated. She has pretty privilege, or he's an asshole. Da, da, da. You're not going to get worked up about it. That's the benefit of it. You're not going to get worked up about how unfair the world is. So you have to start there. You have to realize, okay, the world is not a fair place. But that doesn't mean that I have to play fair. It doesn't mean you have to play fair. It means you can be just as unfair as the world. It means you gotta find those loopholes. It means you gotta cheat, adjust the rules, follow the rules in one situation, not follow the rules in another situation. It means you gotta adapt. You gotta strategize. And you have to figure out how to really play this game in life. Especially if you want to be someone who's like super successful or, whatever. Do you think the most successful people, now a lot of them gonna lie and say, oh, I have to follow the rules. I did this, I didn't cheat. I didn't do anything wrong by my mama's grave. Da, da, da. A lot of them would say that. But a lot of celebrities and stuff, a lot of people, how they got to the top. Some people slept their way to the top. We got, and it's not to hate on people like that, but Kim K had, the sex tape that got leaked out, and, she became famous, and da 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 da. You have a lot of these people out here. A lot of these famous people out here, they didn't get to the top by following the rules. They didn't, especially with some of these women, they didn't get to the top by being a good girl, by following rules. They got to the top because they said, you know what? Life isn't fair. The world isn't fair. But I'm going to do what I have to do to make it at the very top. And I'm going to strategize. And I'm going to think. And I'm going to be outsmarting other people. And I'm going to do what I need to do to get what I want. That is how they think. They didn't sit and worry about following rules. And then, you have some of these successful people, they it's like they push in school this one-track way of life. Oh, you go to school, you go to elementary school, middle school, high school, then you must go to college for 4 years, get a bachelor's degree or any, master's degree, whatever degree, and then you're gonna just get married, get a good office job. That's the type of lifestyle that they push. They push this one type of lifestyle. There's many different type of lifestyles, and especially in this day and age. So you're sitting here thinking, I have to follow rules, I have to follow morals. You don't have to do that. In fact, and I operate as a goddess. I could care less about what people think about me, about following rules, about, whatever. I don't care. I operate as a goddess. I have to strategize. I do whatever I need to do to get what I want. And that may sound sociopathic. Yes, it probably is. I don't give a shit. I just don't care. Because I have to do what is best for me. And at my age, following rules, caring about being, I need to be a good person, that's not the right thing for me to do. Because I've done it long enough without getting the desired results or without getting anything from it. So, with that being said, stop worrying about rules. It's not a fair world. The world is unfair. Life is unfair. But you don't have to follow those rules. In fact, as the goddess, I operate as a goddess, I'm going to give y'all permission to not follow the rules. Because I've done it. I've figured out certain things. I'm not the smartest person in the world. I'm not going to claim to be the smartest person in the world. But I believe I am pretty damn smart. And I have found loopholes. I have found solutions that work, that were against the rules, and they work for me, and I haven't had any repercussions from it. So, you have to get into the mindset of, you gotta stop and you gotta think. Stop and think. What are the loopholes? What is the shortcuts? How can I make my life easier? How can I work smarter and not harder? You have to train yourself into this thinking, and I think I'm going to do a separate video on a certain type of thinking that could actually be helpful for most people, because I do feel, especially as women, we need this type of thinking, because especially, we're more, supposedly we're more emotional beings, and there are a lot of emotional women out here for many different reasons, but some of y'all out here need this type of thinking, and so I'm going to do a separate video on it probably within the next week or so. But anyway, stop following the rules. You don't have to care about the rules. Because all those rules, all those morals, all those laws, all those regulations, they're keeping you stuck, and they're keeping you from winning. You want to win at life. And when I say win at life, I don't just mean, making a lot of money, getting married, living in a house, the American dream house with a picket white fence. No, I mean winning. You define winning. What is winning to you? Is it nailing a certain job? Is it living a certain lifestyle? Is it moving somewhere? You have to get into a point. Is it outsmarting people? Is it, improving upon yourself? It's winning is whatever it is to you. And you have to get to that point. And the best way to do it is you have to stop following the rules. You have to get to a point where you don't care about the rules. You don't care about, if you look like a bad person or whatever. You have to get to a point. So you have to level up your mindset, because it's not for the weak. It's not for the people who, I have a guilty conscience, or, I feel bad lying to you. You can't have a guilty conscience. And you have to get to a point where you said, I've had enough of not getting what I want in life, and I'm going to start doing what it is that I need to do. So, and the best way to do this is stop worrying about being a good person and stop playing fair in an unfair world. So, with that being said, that is all I have for this one, and I will check you guys later in the next one. Bye bye.